Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Maxwell Construction, who has been our sponsor since the very beginning. For over 30 years, Maxwell has delivered the highest quality projects by holding to their core values of customer satisfaction, positive attitude, respect, and excellence. So if you have any kind of commercial construction need, give Maxwell Construction a call today at 812-537-2200.
Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. This is Merrill and Linda Hutchinson, preparing to ease you on your gloomy days with a little laughter and joy and fun.
Gloomy days. It is the Lenten season.
It is the Lenten season.
It's the time of preparation.
I've cut out sugar and you've cut out caffeine. This is one happy place to be, folks. Let me tell you.
It has been kind of interesting of what the different choices in our family are. Just, and again, it's just a time of reflection and really self-examination and, hopefully doing better, right?
Yeah.
So those are things that, hey, I'm doing, we're on it. So,
well, when you told me you were going without caffeine, I put together a quick phone call list, 911.
Stop.
And
not only am I giving up caffeine, but Dunkin', which
yeah, we got to quit mentioning their name. They're not sponsoring us, so,
but just driving past it now gives me the kind of shakes because I'm like, no, I can't stop. I can't stop. But so, okay, let me ask you this. When was the last time that you, actually, I know this answer, but let's see if you confess.
What's that?
When was the last time that you had a real belly laugh?
Last night. Oh my gosh. So, when you were a kid, one of my most fun memories of school, and it's not a particular event, but it happened multiple times, was when you were in a class that probably you were not really that interested in, and somebody in the class started doing something funny. Yet you had to keep yourself under control because you didn't want to get in trouble.
Right.
And the harder you tried to keep yourself under control, the harder it was to not laugh. And before you know it, you're like crying and putting your head on the desk and covering up your face and you're laughing, crying, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die here.
So tell them what you were doing last night that made you laugh so hard.
So yesterday, Kyle and I recorded, we did a kind of a two-part show, and it was kind of like chasing your dreams and stuff. And so we did, part of my dream was the kettle bar that we've talked about before.
Your new patented
and so,
product. Okay.
And Kyle's like, yeah, let's go ahead and do that,
Oh, no.
And so we spent the first half of that class working out on the kettle bar.
With Kyle?
He is pathetic. Oh my gosh.
Working out, Kyle, we love you,
Kyle,
but on Strong Dads.
And we better love you because otherwise you'd have no hope.
Oh,
no.
man. We're going to be talking about that we don't throw people under the bus to get a laugh.
It
but
was so, I know. So we shouldn't even talk about this. But he was working out and he looks like an old man working out. And he starts cracking these jokes in the middle of the workout.
Gosh.
And then he starts laughing. And then I start laughing. And so last night I was putting together that show and editing stuff. And I had my earphones in.
Were
and
in
I
tears.
just start laughing.
You
And
were
I
in
couldn't.
tears.
I'm not even sure if I finished editing because I was such a mess.
Well, at one point I came over to see what you're doing, and Kyle's like whispering in his breath, I'm sorry, girls. Your dad's failed. Like he is.
At one point he went to his mic after he said I was abusing him, and he's like, help me, someone help me. Like as if he's being held hostage in a closet of a
If you don't know
house.
what we're talking about, Merle and a younger dad, Kyle Crawford, they do a weekly show called Strong Dads, and those two are hysterical. But yeah, so just editing the show
I was laughing hard. Yeah. I was, and so even if you don't like the kettle bar or you like working out, you got to listen to the show.
Actually, at one point you said, I don't think this is going to help sell kettle bars.
I think this is not how you use the kettle bar. Maybe I'll have to
blooper video.
Yeah, it was funny though.
Oh man,
funny.
yeah.
All right, how about you? When was the last time you had a good old belly laugh?
Oh my goodness, we have 5 grandchildren, and when our daughters, daughter-in-laws, and sons send videos, of our kids, grandkids, they crack me up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you remember the one years ago she's now 7, but she was just a couple years old, and she had filled her backpack up with all of this stuff, and she put it, and she needed help putting it on because it was so heavy and so
Right.
big, and she had done it on the floor, and then she couldn't get up, and she literally kept like tipping over.
Yeah, it was...
And you could hear in this video, mom was laughing and mom was videoing. And at some point, the little 2-year-old went, "Help me, please." She's literally like,
she was like a turtle on her back.
oh my gosh. I have watched that video over and over again, and it is classic.
Yeah, we have quite a few of those. The other day, our one granddaughter is learning how to ride a bike.
Yeah,
and
2.
and I think what's fun is when you watch somebody else having a belly laugh. And when we're talking belly laugh, we're just talking that deep sort of totally authentic laugh, nothing fake about it, and you can't stop it.
Yeah.
But she's riding this bike, and our son, who's on a bike in front of her, and they're teaching her, and to try to get her to not like get too bogged down by the working part. He's kind of playing games with her by slowing down and
you
stuff.
You can't catch me. You can't catch me.
Well, then she catches him and she bumps into his car, into his bike, and then he acts like he's being, and she starts laughing. That little girl laughs. She starts laughing like she just really basically blew her daddy off the course.
Yeah.
And that's so funny to hear her laugh.
So it doesn't have to be small children that laugh or make you laugh. We can have and find laughter and in the silliest things, the simplest things. You don't have to spend a lot of money and go to a comedy show, and you don't have to watch raunchy comics to get a laugh. We know that laughter is a natural antidepressant, that it can change your mood and your perspective and your life if we allow ourselves to just find joy and find laughter in the simplest things.
Yeah. Well, let's thank our sponsors, and let's talk a little bit then about how we can find more laughter and joy even in darker days. The idea that, we have probably a whole lot more control over these things than we oftentimes either recognize or want to give ourselves credit for. So Rock Solid Radio would like to thank Maxwell Construction and Casey's Outdoor Solutions for sponsoring our show today. So we want to thank those guys and just the support that they are to our community and to what we do here at Rock Solid Radio, as well as Rock Solid Families. So thank you guys very much.
And I want to shout out to all the women that I'm going to be actually meeting with when this airs, that coming weekend. I'm actually going to be in West Virginia speaking at a women's conference, and we're speaking on a very similar topic of joy and talking about that. And so if you're tuning in for the first time to Rock Solid Radio, welcome. And we hope that you'll stay tuned in. But I'm excited about being there and just sharing a little bit about how to find joy even in the darkest times. There is joy even in grief. Hun, I think back the morning my mom passed away, the coroner had just been there, or the funeral home had just been there, the hospice had just left, and it was my dad and my brothers and I just sitting around the table. It was early in the morning, and most people were still asleep, and I remember just all of a sudden just finding things to laugh about, to find joy in things of my mom and things of our family. And I remember being in tears laughing, thinking, I'm laughing and my mom just passed away. But it was almost like a relief. It was a comic relief of just finding something, even if it's, is the mailman going to bring us the mail today? Something so silly that, and I don't even remember what it was, the things that we were laughing about, but it felt good to find that joy even in the midst of grief. My mom had battled cancer for years. She had suffered for a long time. And so there was some relief there. And we even found laughter then.
Yeah, so you found it, right?
Found
and so
it,
you're looking for it, and it's a celebration. I mean, in your case there, you're looking for the things to celebrate, and in that case, the celebration of life. And so part of, Hun, why we got into this subject was We keep coming across these reports, and we don't even need the reports because actually what walks into our office just keeps pounding us with the amount of depression and anxiety that is out in our community. But the CDC just recently came out with a report, and again, it was kind of on the state of affairs in terms of anxiety and depression and all those kinds of things. And I mean, I think they give multiple stats in that report, but one of them is like 1 in 4 girls have had a thought about suicide. And so just like that number is up from like 10 years prior, 2011, that number itself was up 60%.
Yeah.
And so we're just saying that because it's knocking on our door like crazy. We are hiring a new coach, and primarily our new coach is to help deal with primarily the young girls and younger women,
Teens and women, yeah.
teens, because, we can't put our head in the sand about these things. But, as always, like we're going to spend a few minutes complaining about the problem. But today in our show, we want to talk about, well, what are some of the light remedies? Now, and we don't want to make light of the problem, but what are some of the remedies that you can do right there in your own, your fingertips, whether it's learning how to laugh differently, learning how to see something differently. Because, if you don't understand the amount of control that you have, you will just slowly drift off into a very dark, gloomy place.
Yeah. And you bring up our new coach, and we're going to officially announce her soon. But, our new coach is a widow. And her husband died of cancer after just 5 years of marriage, and she's a young mom of a 5-year-old little girl, but yet she, and again, she's one of my old students, but like she found joy in the midst of grief.
Right.
And so she taught me a lot, and she's a lot younger than I am. But the fact is that she chose joy, and I'm so proud of her. I'm so excited to have her on our team. We'll be talking more about her soon. But yeah, I mean, that is a perfect example of a decision, not based on your circumstances, but a decision to choose joy.
Yeah. And, none of this is new in the sense of we do know some basic things about what we're going to get out of our body based off of what we put into it. Even from a biological standpoint, nutritionists for years have said, well, if, you eat junk, you become junk. We know advertisers know this, like putting what we put into our mind. Before you know it, if I run a commercial long enough, somebody's going to convince me that I need something when in fact I really don't.
Okay. That's why I'm I'm having a fast of Dunkin', because I drive by literally and I'm like, oh, I need that. I don't need that.
Right.
I choose that. And so I've got to break that addiction in that compulsion to have that. And so that's exactly why this time period is a time to say, no, Lord, you are my focus. You are what I need the most of. I don't need caffeine. I don't need Dunkin', and by the way, it's not donuts. It's the tea. They have like the strongest, best tea in town. And because I'm not a coffee drinker, but it's exactly right. Like, what do we need? What do we truly need?
Yeah. And then, so then what are we allowing our brain to stay focused on and to maintain on? And, not to go into a total psychology lesson here, but just so our listeners understand this, there's an entire methodology within psychology that really focuses on this practice. And it's CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And cognitive is just sort of what's thinking, all right? The behavior is actually what's doing, all right? But we actually know that if we spend time thinking a certain way, certain behaviors will come out, okay? So if all day long I think about how bad stuff is, my behaviors will come out as being much more depressed. And so you can see this like just ruminating in my head how bad the day was, blah, 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 blah. And the next thing you know, you look at my face and my face is all drawn down and frown-like and stuff like that. And it's like, oh my gosh, my thinking is making my physical output, my behaviors come out a certain way. And so we really have to learn that there is a direct association between these two.
Yep.
And when we start to learn that, we see how we can actually start to alter some of those.
Well, and if we go back to episode 217, we talked about this with exercise.
Yeah.
That, yes, you don't feel like getting off the couch. Yes, you feel down and it's gloomy day or whatever, but you get up and you just start moving and you feel better. And so that connection, it is a natural antidepressant, just like laughter, choosing to laugh and look at the joy and the bright side or the funny things and simple things of life is where we start to choose and change our mindset.
Yeah. You want to do something?
What?
Let's do something. Okay. I got an experiment for all of you.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Am I going to have to do something?
Oh, yeah. You're going to love it.
Oh,
you're going to love it.
Okay.
So just to kind of make the point, all right? So no matter where you are right now, I don't care. You're not going to close your eyes or anything. So even if you're driving, okay, as you sit or stand wherever you are right this instant, I just want you to look straight out.
You're making me nervous.
No worries. And I want you to put the biggest cheesy smile on your face that you can hold.
That I can hold?
Yeah, just put it on. Put it on. That is a terrible smile. Smile.
Well, where's yours?
Because I'm doing the drill. Smile.
Stop.
Smile.
Stop.
Smile.
Where's yours?
I am smiling. I'm smiling as much as I can.
Stop.
All right. So here's the deal.
Oh, my gosh.
In doing that, I have not done that ever and not had people start to laugh. No matter their mood. I've had people literally crying in my office before. And after we calmed them down and they were talking about their depressiveness, and you can see it coming out of every pore of their body. When they come into my office, you can see their shoulders are down. They're staring down at the ground. They are just like completely downtrodden. And you're like, oh my gosh, look at what their body is telling their brain. And it reinforces this loop. The brain is sad. It brings it out through the body, the muscles and everything. They signal back to the brain. And so you just stay in this depressive loop. And you have to interrupt the loop. We talk about, in marriage, we talk about breaking the crazy cycle. Exercise is breaking the loop. Exercise is taking the body and moving it in a different way rather than a depressive sort of lay on the couch deal. Just merely by smiling, by a forced smile. It's fake. Like, that's the point. It's fake. But by doing it, all of a sudden the expression on the face, people will go into a real smile, and then they'll go into a laugh. And in that moment, you can stop and you can say, how do you feel? Right now, how do you feel?
Wow.
And invariably they'll be like, oh my gosh, like that's weird.
Yeah.
I feel better. And so by no means is this the antidote for depression. Okay. So I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is the power that you have to take control of thoughts and redirect them and get your body and your mind working in a completely different light.
And you know what? I mentioned this, one of the darkest days of my family's life. It was almost like it was so dark, so heavy with my brothers and my dad and I that it had to break. It was almost like it was so much that we knew that we couldn't stay there. I remember, hon, all of your family, your siblings around your mom before she passed away. And I remember us all tearing up. They knew, they were telling us that it was not going to be long, and we're all standing in that ICU room. And I remember, I don't even remember which one of us, but someone said, who's going to bake the turkeys? Because your mom always made the turkeys at Thanksgiving. And just that comment made us all laugh.
Right.
But we're standing around your mother who's about ready to pass. But it was almost like we've got to have relief right now, right? And nobody took that as disrespect.
No, it wasn't at all.
It wasn't disrespectful. It was a simple, joyful moment where we're remembering something super special about your mom.
Yeah.
And that brought us joy.
And it changed the light.
It changed the whole tone of the room.
The laughter allowed the whole body and mind to start to find some ease and some comfort in the stressful situation. And so it's a very intentional act. And we don't want to lose sight that these are some of the very basic things that we can do to start to change the direction of our mind, of our sadness. But the other way happens too, if I allow those things to continue, I will stay going down that road of depression.
Stuck. Yeah. Just last night, our daughter was really hoping that we were going to take her out to dinner. She loves our kids love to eat out, and when we're running around, a lot of times that's the only way we can get to dinner together. But we've been home. Like, I've cooked every night this week, and so like for her, that's a shock. And so she last night wanted to go out, and we said no, we're cooking and eating together. And she was like all grumpy, right?
Oh,
like,
she was pouting. I'm like, see, that doesn't sit well with me at all.
But she kind of got it stuck in her crawl, right?
Yeah.
She was disappointed. That's not what she wanted. And so it was like grumpy, 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 grumpy. And so everything just kind of like set her off. And it was funny, like we weren't going to let it get to us. Like and that made her mad.
Yeah, and so the more fun we had with it, it kind of, in her mind, she was taking it at her expense.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't intended to be that way.
Right.
Although, in saying that, learning how to laugh at yourself is one of the things we're going to get to today. Okay. Hey, we probably need to put a disclaimer in this because we're going to go through some different things that we can do to help people just right now in the moment. Okay.
Yeah.
But, we've struggled before in our family with having fun at the expense of somebody or through sarcasm. And, you have to be very careful about knowing what the storyline is going to be in your humor. If your storyline is going to be at the expense of another person, you need to really examine that, okay? And I'm not saying it's always bad, right? I mean, we're certainly not trained.
You and Kyle last night.
Yeah. Well, like the last thing we want to do is sort of nix all comedians because they're making fun of somebody. It's like part of that is a culture we have to learn to laugh at ourselves. But you also have a responsibility, especially when you have an idea of knowing how something could hit somebody. You have a responsibility to use that well, especially with ill-intended sarcasm.
Yep. I remember when we were doing premarital counseling decades ago, and we had someone who put on their evaluation that it didn't even sound like we were married because we got great laughs, but it was at the other's expense. Like we were sarcastic with one another, and we've learned to kind of let that roll off. But for someone who doesn't know us, it looked like criticism. It looked like, unloving. And so he had a good point. Like, that's not really, I don't want to get a laugh from you at the expense of Merle. And so we really got to be careful with that. That's a disclaimer where, okay, well, it made me laugh. And maybe it was, made me happy.
Right.
No, that's not what we're talking about.
Most of that is like understanding your audience.
Right.
And just because it works in one audience doesn't mean it's going to work in another. And so I grew up in a very sarcastic, I'll say somewhat harsh environment in terms of comedy. Like, that's how we showed love to each other.
I know, and it made me cry.
Yeah. If you weren't being made fun of, like, what's wrong with me? Like, you guys, so the harassment, especially from the guys in our family. And so to this day, there's still that level of harassment among the guys. But now, you have to be careful. Like, you got grandkids, and so you don't talk that way to a grandkid until they understand maybe, and they can handle that differently. So anyway, here's kind of the point with just taking control of your mind and your thoughts. Okay. In 2 Corinthians 10:5, you've heard this before, but it talks about we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ.
Yeah.
So the idea here of the thoughts that we have to truly bring it back to God and to take it captive and say, wait, what am I allowing this thought, this depressive sort of track that I'm trailing, what am I allowing it to do to me, especially in the negative? What can I do to alter it? And so this is the active part of it. You take it captive. You don't just sort of assume that you're going to be captived by it.
Yeah. So step one in this whole process of really finding joy and allowing yourself to laugh and to find that happiness, even in the worst of circumstances, you got to acknowledge your kind of your current condition. Are you critical? Are you negative Nelly? Are you pessimist about everybody and everything? Do you always have to, and this was me for a lot of years. Like I still struggle with it when I'm tired or, frustrated, like,
or without caffeine
or without
stuff like that. Yeah.
That I use the example all the time. My daughter can make an amazing meal and I walk in the door and she's cooked it all for us, and I will notice the crumbs on the counter. And it's like, can I not find joy and laughter and happiness in what she did do, not focus on what she didn't do? And that sometimes is me. And I admit that that's not a quality I love in myself, and I work hard to try to overcome that.
Yeah. So number one is acknowledging that these things can go on.
It's a struggle.
Number two then is then owning it. And there's a very big difference between acknowledging, oh yeah, I noticed that happens. Well, are you going to do anything about it? Are you going to own this part of it? Or are you going to say, well, I complain about the crumbs because I'm the one that always then has to clean them up. Okay. And so right away, that's not owning the idea that you attacked our daughter in that situation. Instead, that's basically placing blame on her. And so the idea that I'm going to own it, I'm going to own the condition that I put myself in to do that. And ownership, Hun, I find that ownership is the hardest part for truly people saying, yes, I'm going to change.
Yeah.
Because they'll come right up. How often do we hear parents say stuff like, yeah, I let our kids sleep in the bed with us, and I'm guilty. I'm guilty. So they acknowledge it.
But nothing changes.
There's no ownership of where it's going and what it's going to do. And so owning it means you take responsibility for it.
Yeah. I also have people that say, that's just who I am. That's just how I'm wired. I had one person say, well, how do you know God doesn't want me to be mad at the world? Well, let me show you the many, many verses that tell us not to. But in his mind, that's just how I am. And so he's not willing to do anything about it.
Yeah. Okay. The third point is, okay, so I've acknowledged it. I'm going to own the responsibility that is associated with it. And so the third point then is, okay, what am I willing to do today to make the change, right? And I have to put in the word today, because if you don't immediately get on this, I have dieted so many stupid times in my life. It is amazing. Okay. And by the way, everything we're talking about here is not stuff that we read out of a book. Okay. There are our own personal challenges that all of us have. And so the idea, like, okay, like today, I am not going to eat those sweets. I'm not today. I just have to look at today. All right. You're not today. You just have to get through today without getting that tea.
Yes.
So it's
through the
just
caffeine headache
today. Almost. So again, like, what am I willing to do today? Oftentimes people will make big, grandiose sort of things. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sign up for college, and I'm going to get my 4-year degree, and I'm going to get myself back on the trail. And okay, good job. See you tomorrow. And then they go on their way.
Yeah. Nothing
they
changes.
Just put out some major, major things that they're going to do. You're going to go to college. How about today? You call a university, or you go online and you apply for, what are you doing today?
Yeah. Yeah. Then the next one is, and really this is important, to replace it instead of just remove it. Sometimes we create this void or vacuum, like we don't know what to do with ourselves. And so maybe it is something different. Like instead of, making fun of somebody, I'm going to compliment somebody. Or instead of smoking, I'm going to go for a walk. And so you've got to replace something negative with something positive so that you start healthy habits.
Right.
It's not just about removing the bad. It's about bringing in the good, right?
Yeah, because if you just remove something, you created now a void, and a void can't wait to be filled in with something, right? Satan can't wait to come back in and fill it with something. And so you probably can go without on something for a while. We used to joke with my dad all the time. Remember when he would quit smoking, he would chew toothpicks.
Oh my gosh, there was toothpick pieces
everywhere,
all over the place. Yeah.
And again, but he was actively trying to break the habit, not the nicotine addiction, the habit of the smoking. And so he just replaced it with something, unless you choke on him and die, it's a healthier opportunity for change.
So for instance, I drink a lot. And when I say that, hang on, like water.
She's got a drinking problem.
But it's not alcohol.
Right.
But my point is, if I cut out all the pop and all the caffeine and all the tea, what am I replacing it with? Like, this is hot water. And
that
so
just seems so boring to me.
I love hot things. Like I love like the hot tea and stuff. So like, if I'm not going to drink tea, then what am I allowing myself to? I've got to have a plan, because otherwise I'll go back to it
Right.
because I'm thirsty,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and same thing with sweets. Like, instead of sweets, are you going to eat carrots and celery?
Yeah.
What are you?
No, not donut. No. In the addiction world, we see all the time. We see addicts exchange addictions, and the point with that is maybe they were addicted to cocaine, but they finally said, "No more, I can't." And they might become addicted to running or exercise. And they'll even say, like, I just had to switch one addiction for the next. And the next thing you know, they are almost obsessed with like maybe the running or the working out. And so again, like even that can be dangerous, but you were looking for healthier alternatives that we can replace the negative pattern with.
Yeah. But then you have to monitor your progress. And so you really got to make sure the next step is to make sure it stays healthy. So if you get obsessed about shopping, and at least it isn't methamphetamines, okay, well, that's better.
Right.
No, it's still not good. So you want to monitor. We're continually being refined and purified and growing, hopefully, in our relationship with God and each other. And so we're a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
Merle and I are, you are. And so just continue to monitor the progress and surround yourself with healthy people that you have given permission to speak the truth in love. So that they can say, hey, that's getting a little obsessive, that what you're doing. Or, hey, this is getting a little out of control.
Yeah. As far as monitoring progress, you might be going, well, like, how do I do that? I want to make it so simple for you. Okay. Because we make things way more complicated. And, oftentimes you could actually grade kids in school by never giving them a test. You could actually do this. And you can do it because people know how they're doing. And you can take kids and you can go through a quarter of the school year, or you can go through a test, and afterwards you can just sit down and you can say, okay, so how do you think you did? And kids they can only speak to honesty and truth. All right. And the honest kids will come in there and they'll be like, I don't know. I don't think I did that good. All right. Or someone will be like,
what do you mean they can only, because I know a lot of kids that don't speak honestly and truthfully.
Yeah. Well, again, like if we're actually talking about the idea of me being, this is only for my benefit. It's not for anybody else's. Okay. And we're not putting a grade on the report card or anything. And just like intrinsically, people know how they've done. Okay. And so the idea here is just as simple as can be. You can use your phone. You can use just a little notepad. And so like when I'm working with guys with pornography or really any kind of addiction, I will just have them, just because guys, you got to keep them simple. You got to keep it simple. Otherwise they'll fall right off of it. Okay. And you got to say, listen, when you get ready to lay your head down, right there next to your nightstand, I want you to have this little notebook, and I just want you to score your day as it pertains to whatever the issue was: smoking, drugs, pornography. Like, score your day. And I usually just do the 1 through 10. 1 is a terrible day. I fell all over the place. 10 is, man, knocked it out of the park. And so what you'll see is they will score themselves well. I mean, because especially people who want to do well. Now, if they're just still lying to themselves, just okay, the proof will show that out. But people who want to do well, they'll score themselves really well, and they'll be like, I had a 6, and I had a 7, and an 8, and an 8, and an 8, and a 6, and a 7, and they'll say, like, do I have to write anything? I said, you won't write anything until you have an outlier. And when you have an outlier, you will not be able to help yourself from writing. Because
of this.
Because you'll be like, oh, today, man, I had a 3. And I had all these 8s going, and today I had a 3. You won't be able to just put down a 3. You put down a 3 because you'll write it down as to where your failure was. And so I say that because here's what we're trying to do. Remember, we're talking about the habit we're trying to form, and the habit has to come from repetitive measures. And so all of a sudden I see, oh my gosh, I've got a string of 7s, 8s, and 9s. Wow. Before, when I started, I was lucky to get an 8 once or twice a week. And so I'm monitoring my progress, and I'm noticing my trend. And so in school, we talk about trend marking all the time with kids. You know, we have to capture the trend to see if what we're doing is really having an influence. And if what we're doing is not, and I tell people all the time, listen, you've got to do this, because when you come into me, I have no clue as to whether I'm telling you something that's going to be helpful for you.
Right. Is it
and
working?
so I need you to come in and tell me, man, like my score, my trending is still very flat or even going down. Okay, let's stop doing that.
Yeah. So we also have to make a decision, and this is the last one, not to let your joy and your happiness and your laughter based on circumstances. It's an internal decision, really, to find laughter and joy even in the hardest times. And so we don't want you to be turned into a victim. Oh, well, I couldn't help it. Oh, I had a bunch of threes because of. And so we're going to hopefully learn that we can find joy. We can laugh. We can choose those healthy habits and captivate those thoughts even in the darkest, gloomiest days and times. And so that's where we've got to grasp onto and make a decision to choose joy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a growing process, right?
It is.
So you monitor that progress, and you're like, yeah, it's not doing what I want it to do. You make adaptations, you make readjustments. But like you said, you have a very intentional decision-making process. And that right there is where all the control lies. That's why you and I are not real good with people who get stuck in their depression when they have things at their fingertips. Now, if somebody is stuck and we're doing all these things and we just, we're not in a good way, you know, maybe we are talking about a mental health condition here where we need to think about stabilizing with possible medication.
Yeah. So I hope that helps. You know, again, laughter is a natural antidepressant, just like exercise. You know, it's not going to be the end all fix all, but try it. You know, I think that we take ourselves so seriously. We are letting the world dump so much darkness and gloom into our world, and we're kind of just letting it absorb to us. We're letting it stick to us. So let's do a little bit better of protecting our heart and our mind, taking captive every thought, and making it obedient to Christ, and finding that joy and that laughter even in the hardest times.
That's a wrap right there.
There you go.
All right. So let's thank our sponsors. We want to thank Maxwell Construction and Casey's Outdoor Solutions again for being sponsors of the Rock Solid Radio Show. Also, if we can help you in any way, please reach out to us at rocksolidfamilies.org, or you can call our office at 812-576-7625.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day.
Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. They offer a wide selection of high-quality plants, landscaping materials, and home decor. They do amazing high-quality work and can help you transform your indoor and outdoor living spaces into something beautiful. So stop by Casey's Outdoor Solutions today and let them know you appreciate their support for Rock Solid Radio. Visit Casey's today at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana.